right, so now we are ready to assemble our card. So the first thing I'm going to do is put our stamped background onto the card base. And for the card base, I have just a quarter fold card, just something very simple. It doesn't need to be anything elaborate or anything, because the focus is definitely on the front of the card. So I'm just going to put that aside, put a block on top of it just to hold it down. And then let's die cut our window. So I'm centering the rectangle die. And I just eyeball it. You can if you want. Actually, now I'm seeing that it's a little bit to the bottom. If you want, you can take a ruler out and measure. But I usually find that just eyeballing it is good enough. It's usually pretty close. And of course, if you didn't have a die cutting machine, you can just use the trimmer the way I showed you with the winter card. And I reuse the die tape until it doesn't stick anymore, might as well. All right, this, we're going to put our adhesive on the back of it and attach the acetate piece. Now, when I placed or stamped my chair onto the acetate, I was keeping in mind the frame around there. I didn't want to have part of the image hidden by the frame. And I realize now that I forgot to say that while I was stamping. Another thing, if you did have a die cutting machine and you did have, say, a chair die cut, you could also use that in there, which would be cute too. So as I'm placing this down, I'm basically positioning this chair. Any excess that goes off of my frame can just be cut away. But I'm more interested in where this is placed. There we are. So that is ready to go. Now we want to add our foam strips for the sides. Now, because I wanted to put some shells in the bottom here, I actually need to do 3 layers of these foam strips in order to be able to accommodate the height of those shells. I'm just going to put a tiny little extra piece. So as I'm putting these 3 layers of foam strips, when I do my next layers, I make sure that the seams aren't all in the same place. I make sure to stagger them, kind of like bricks, just so that the upper layers will hold any openings in the lower layers together. And once again, if by chance, as I'm placing this, I get a little bit too wide of a gap, I'll just squirt a little bit of Distress Collage Medium in there just to close that up. And I'm not doing it right to the edge, I'm just doing it just slightly in. I want to say like maybe a 1/16 of an inch. Just giving myself a little bit of allowance. I did one before that when I went and did it right to the edge, you ended up seeing a little bit of that white on the front and I didn't like it. So by doing it just shy of the edge, you're getting the same result, but you're not going to be able, or you're not chancing being able to see the white from the front of the card. There we go. Now before we put our next layer up, I need to take all of the tape backings off. And then you get to a point where you can't remember which ones you've taken off, so I think I've got them all. All right, next layer. And as I said before, I'm making sure that this layer is covering up any joins, and that any joins that I have are in different spots than they were on the first layer. There we go. When I ordered these strips, I was hoping they were going this way on the card so that they'd be a little bit longer, but they are not. They are going the other way. So they do need to be joined more often than I would like, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world, and it still does the same job. And as you can see with these, you can do all sorts of different themes for them. You can have really a lot of fun coming up with different ideas. Little opening in here to fill in. And then also a tiny one in there. That's actually the width of the foam, so we're going to do that way. Once again, take the backing off. If we didn't take the backing off, the tape wouldn't stick near, or the foam tape wouldn't stick nearly as well to each other. So we definitely want to take the time to do this to make sure we've got all of our layers glued on together securely. All right, this one here, I'm going to start in this corner and cover that little join there. And if by chance you get a little bit that stuck out, you can just snip it right off. There we go. I'm going to go down this way. Same as the first layer. I'm going to make sure to cover all the seams. I'm just going to pause and be back in a moment. All right, our taping is done. Now for this one, before taking that top release paper off, I'm going to put in my filling. I've got some star sequins. I thought they kind of looked a little bit like starfish, some gold little tiny little balls. I have some seashells here. The reason we had to make sure that we had enough height on our walls there. And then I actually just have some playbox sand. I thought it would be cute in there. Now these seashells, I actually got them from necklaces from thrift stores. You know, the Hawaiian necklaces, the shell necklaces. That's all they are. And took them off of the string. You'd never know that they have holes in the ends for necklaces. But they work perfectly for this. So then I just picked out all the smaller ones of the shells. You don't want to take any of the bigger ones, otherwise you'd have to raise the walls on your shaker card. And better to have the smaller ones because they're effective anyways, so we don't need anything bigger than this. All right, our backing there is off. And I'm just lining up the frame with the bottom of the card there. Make sure that it is glued all the way down to the foam before we shake it. That is the voice of experience talking there. I did one where I shook it first and I had the contents coming out. So there we have our completed card there. So cute, love it with the shells in there. And then you can go and write your message on the inside. If by chance seeing the foam on the outside bothers you, you could take some 1/4" strips of the same cardstock and cover them. But I don't necessarily mind that at all. There you go.